Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel. Do you know how often we hear of cases where someone has a Bigfoot encounter and then they say that they saw a mountain lion or it was a bear or something like that, especially if they are attacked by a Bigfoot, because they're so worried about the ridicule that they may experience by admitting that they'd seen a Bigfoot. Because for so many people, Bigfoot is just an illusion and he doesn't exist. But we know that he does, and that he is the real deal. Anyway, so what happened was this police officer was asked to investigate this case. He was retired, and he had an encounter with a Bigfoot himself. So it's a fascinating story. But before we get started, I just want to say thank you so much to all my wonderful subscribers. I just am the luckiest person to have such amazing people subscribing to my channel. You guys are absolutely amazing and I love you guys lots. Thank you so much for your support. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. And don't forget to click the notification bell, because then you will always know when my next story is on. And I like to download a different story every single day. So you really don't want to miss out. Let's get started. I know you're going to love the story. Dear Sarah and all your listeners, I am from Beaver Creek in Oregon that overlooks the serene, magnificent views over Mount Hood. I'm writing to tell you about my Bigfoot encounter that happened in the fall of 2015. I am 70 years old now and I'm a retired police officer. My wife Hazel and I live in an enchanting, idyllic country post and beam log-style home on 40 acres of private, pristine land, with glorious, lush green rolling hills, stunning valleys, silvery lakes, enchanting ponds, and let's not forget the ubiquitous trees, both large and small, young and old, dotted around everywhere. As I was retired from the New York police force, I made sure that I made my life as complete and as full as possible. Because having seen many officers in my position retire and settle down to a slower pace of life, invariably they no longer felt challenged, and often as a result, they would pass away. So I decided I would retire but keep my life challenged and stimulated as much as I possibly could. So I did keep in touch with my friends on the force. I would offer them my wealth of wisdom and years of experience when they needed another perspective on the case. That not only helped them solve cases better, but it invariably gave me a new lease of life and gave me that rush of adrenaline and that buzz that I always had working in the police force. It takes a special type of person to become an officer if you are passionate about solving crimes. It was always in my blood to uncover the body language of a potential suspect, relying a lot on gut instinct and often reenacting a case. Another way I keep myself stimulated is engaging on hunts with some of the locals in this part of the world who have been teaching me how to refine my skills as a hunter and how to navigate the forests looking for potential great hunting locations. To be a good hunter, you need to incorporate a lot of detective work and skills to figure out where the deer may congregate, and furthermore, you need to learn how to camouflage yourself well enough to ensure that you are not detected by an animal. Because believe me, if you are seen or smelt at all, the game is up and you will almost certainly not return home with a trophy deer or anything at all. One day I was having a beer with my hunting colleagues called Russell. He was telling me about his niece, who I will call Adele for the purposes of this story. One day she went jogging and claims to have been attacked by a mountain lion. I'm afraid I cannot reveal the exact geographical location for reasons of confidentiality in this case. He said that the animal had pounced on her and dragged her into a grassy verge and left her there without even attempting to kill her. The ravine was on a sheer mountainous ridge which was not easy to climb, and it just seemed so implausible that a mountain lion would behave like that. These creatures do not hang around when it comes to killing their prey. Even weirder still, on a medical examination, Adele had absolutely no bruises, drag marks, or even scratches on her body, apart from a handprint. But there was something strange, and it was the black bruise marks of 4 large fingers on top of her arm. A mountain lion does not bruise a person with 4 long finger marks, he reflected. Despite what Adele is saying, there is no way a mountain lion did this to her. So why in the world is she lying to me and to us? Is she trying to protect her abductor? He continued to share with me how traumatized his niece was over the experience. It seemed even days after the event, she was so terrified that she had been unable to speak, and even mentioning the attack made her burst into floods of uncontrollable tears. How was she found? I asked. A dog walker in the lower valley found one of Adele's pink sneakers and recognized it immediately because Adele runs every day and she always wears pink and often encounters all these other dog walkers, so they know her well. The sneaker lay in some grass at the bottom of the ridge. The police were called and organized a search party, and that was when she was found. Even when they rescued her, she barely said a word. I wondered if you could look at the case and talk to Adele, because something's not right here, and I want to get to the bottom of it. I want to know what happened to my poor little niece. Well, I said, before I do anything, I'd like to speak to Adele and go and search the area she was found on the sheer mountainous ridge. I would also like to see if I can find any evidence of that mountain lion activity in the location and where she claims to have been attacked. I could suddenly feel that exciting adrenaline surge I usually got as a police officer pulsing through my body, energizing me with a huge drive to get to the bottom of this case, because I knew I needed answers. I knew something about this girl's story was not adding up. My first port of call was a visit with Adele, who I was told was emotionally unfit to speak to anyone at this stage, but I assured the girl's mother that I only needed a few words. My daughter has not eaten a thing in 3 days, officer, she told me. I have never seen my daughter this withdrawn and this disorientated before. Adele was sitting on her bed, clutching a teddy bear tightly to her chest, almost as if the stuffed animal was giving her some measure of comfort that I thought seemed immature for a girl of 18 years old. Hello, I said, introducing myself. I just want to find out more about your mountain lion attack. You see, the physical evidence from the medical examiner does not line up with your story. You have 4 bruise marks on your hands that appear to be made from a man. Is there someone you are trying to protect? I asked. I'm not protecting anyone, Adele snapped. Why won't anyone believe me about the mountain lion? Because the dots do not add up, I said, and I know that you are not telling the truth. You are covering up for someone, and I want to know why. Who are you protecting? Please go, said the girl. I do not appreciate being hounded like this. If you do not believe me, I do not care. I'm sticking to my story. I was puzzled. Why was this intelligent girl being so evasive, and what on earth was she hiding? I was almost certain that a family member had abducted her, and she refused to blow their cover. This was not the first time I had seen a victim protecting their abductor before. It was quite common. It was all exceedingly odd, the way she was behaving, I thought. I knew the girl was lying for sure, but I also knew that I needed answers. So I drove to the location of the abduction, and what I saw there left me with more questions than answers. The area was strewn with broken tree limbs that had been snapped, and the ground was covered with Adele's sneaker marks, and these huge footprints that were more akin to a bear's than a mountain lion's were everywhere. One thing I did know was that a human could not have such monstrously huge feet, so surely they had to be that of a bear. Looking at the scuff marks in the soil, it definitely looked as if Adele had put up some fight against her abductor, but she had clearly lost that battle. I searched around for telltale marks of a mountain lion, and there were no signs of any such predator. There were no coyote or puma, panther or mountain lion tracks anywhere, which affirmed to me what I knew. that Adele was definitely not abducted by a mountain lion. I decided to investigate the ridge where Adele was found, and believe me, it was sheer, steep and treacherous, and climbing up this thing was so hazardous. I can't even begin to tell you how hazardous it was. I'm a fit man, but climbing that ridge was arduous, and it must have taken agility, strength, perfect balance and coordination to make it up that ridge with Adele. On my approach, I had nearly slipped half a dozen times, and it would not have taken me much to shatter my ankle. I truly did not know what to think, other than the fact that Adele's abductor was in pristine physical condition with extraordinary agility, which would rule out a lot of potential males as suspects. Whoever abducted Adele was in remarkable shape. Suddenly I came across the grassy verge where Adele had been found, and it was covered with bracken, twigs, fern and branches of pine. It really looked like some kind of a predator's nest. I was growing increasingly confused. Who or what had abducted Adele, I wonder? I decided to investigate the wooded area where Adele runs, and something stood out to me. There were strange markers all around the forest, where bark had almost been cleaned off the tree trunks to reveal the smooth, clean wooden surface beneath. And these areas went up to 8 feet in height. It was like an animal that was extremely tall had been rubbing his body against the tree and shedding away the outer bark so that he could have a good big scratch. Suddenly, as I looked around the woods, I just knew instinctively I was not alone. Something was watching me, and whatever it was exceedingly dangerous. I just knew it. Having worked in the force for many years, I had learnt to rely on my gut instincts, and believe me, my life had been saved multiple times by trusting them. I immediately raised my rifle and peered through the scope, but believe me, there was nothing there. But I felt cold, heartless eyes on me, like that of a savage predator, but I saw absolutely nothing. I stood still like a statue, listening for a moment, and noticed how unusually quiet everything was. So much so, in fact, that it gave a very airy and sinister feeling to the whole area. What in God's name was Adele thinking, I thought, running in an area that felt this menacing? Suddenly I heard this low-pitched guttural growl, and it was directed at me. Ah! I cannot describe that noise because it went right through my whole body, and it had the similar incapacitating effects of a taser, and I kid you not. It was that disorientating and that shocking. I have always been known for remaining calm in a dangerous shootout, but my calmness fled and was replaced with a feeling of impending dread and doom. It was then that I saw it stepping out of its cloak of invisibility into our reality, a creature the likes of what I have never seen before. What on earth was this hideous form that was growling at me? I had never seen anything like it before. Ah! The creature was a 10-foot monster, and he was monstrously huge. Truly, there are no words to describe this bipedal being that looked as if it had stepped out of my darkness nightmare and taken form. The creature was truly no less than 1,000 pounds and maybe more. Bear in mind, I'm a retired officer, so I'm not given to exaggeration. All over his body he was covered in hair, although it was more scant on the groin area, which meant I could see this creature was all male. Also, the face was hairless, the skin grey and thick with deep furrows on the protruding forehead, but it was those furious brown eyes that concerned me the most. They were terrifying, with a predatory look on them that did not spare any punches, as the creature wanted me dead, and there was no time like the present for him to engage in his brutal intentions. For a second, which seemed to last for hours, because it was the longest second of my entire life, I could feel my blood growing cold, and this dull, foreboding ache spread over my entire body as I came to the sudden realization that my life was indeed ebbing away, even before he pulled any punches on me. My hands were sweating so profusely that I could not keep the rifle straight in my hands anymore, and using it on this creature was completely pointless, because I knew this thing was way faster than my hand would be on the trigger. I would be dead before I even attempted to shoot him, and I knew it, that even if I tried in my situation, it would be hopeless for me, and it would be more hopeless than it already was. The creature lunged towards me like a boxer taking a punch, and I knew he wanted to fight me and wanted me to fight him back. I tried to use the back of my rifle like a thrashing arm, but I just landed up thrashing the air because the creature moved away so fast. Suddenly he lashed out at my hand, and I could hear the bone in my wrist shatter, and the pain was so debilitating I screamed out in agonizing pain. Then as I lay, I rolled up in a ball on the ground, crying out in the pain that I was feeling. The creature kicked me with one of his legs, and I could hear my knee shatter and sharp shooting pains rocket through my body like firecrackers. Suddenly I heard the barking of distant dogs as they suddenly ran into the brush towards me, with their owner, who was walking behind them. I let out a terrified scream, and the dog walker fired some shots in the air. In seconds, the creature had vanished, leaving me as a bundle of throbbing pain on the wooded clearing. That dog walker saved my life, even though I gathered later that they did not even get a glimpse of my attacker, but they had sensed something was horribly wrong, which was why they let out the warning shots with their rifle. I was in pain for a very long time and needed knee surgeries and titanium plates in my wrists, so I was out of action for a few long weeks. In that time I did some research and realized that I had been savagely wrestled by a Bigfoot, or a hairy man, or Sasquatch, and suddenly all the pieces of Adele's mysterious abduction started to make sense to me. No wonder Adele was not talking. And neither was I. We were hardly about to tell the world that a Bigfoot had very nearly killed me, and he had not enjoyed toying me first before unleashing his final fatal blow. I would almost certainly be dead by now. I was certain of that. When I was completely recovered from my injuries, I went to meet up with Adele at a coffee shop. She ordered a chocolate milkshake, and I had a cafe latte with a blueberry muffin. "What is all this?" asked Adele. "Why did you need to see me?" she asked. "Because," I said, "I know it was a Bigfoot that abducted you that day." Adele almost choked on her milkshake and went a deathly white, and then she began to sob and sob and sob. "Are you all right, ma'am?" asked the waitress curiously. "This gentleman here, he's not upsetting you, is he?" she said, pointing at me with an accusatory look. "No, it's not him," she said. "I'm just over-emotional." It was then that Adele told me what really happened the day that she went for her morning jog. I was running in the woods when something ran through the undergrowth at me like a heavy bulldozer, and before I knew it, I was fighting off this hairy ape-man-like creature. He gripped me powerfully with one of his hands and balanced me on his shoulders, carrying me up that sheer ridge. He was like a trapeze artist because his balance was impeccable. I was terrified because I thought I would fall to my death, but he held me down fast with his strong hands. When he got me on the grassy verge, he started stroking my hair and face as if I was precious to him, almost as if he was seeing me as a potential mate or wife. He even brought me berries and dead birds to eat. I think he thought the ridge would be a perfect hiding place for me. "Wow," I said, "that truly is some story." "Oh, it is," agreed Adele, "and not one I'm willing to tell to just anyone. Can you imagine the ridicule we would get if we vented our stories out there? No one would ever believe us. They do not believe me about the mountain lion account anyway, she laughed. But so what do I care? I agreed. The less said about the matter, the better. Adele and I have healed physically, but the emotional ramifications of that attack have left their indelible mark on me, and I know I will never be quite the same again as I was before this tortuous encounter. I hope your listeners enjoyed my story. Well, I just want to say I found the story absolutely phenomenal. I am blown away by this story. And it just speaks of the fact that there are so many people out there hiding their Bigfoot encounters from the public, not wanting to admit that they've had an encounter with a hairy man because they don't want that ridicule. But this creature behaved very differently with Adele to the way he behaved with this male opponent who he saw as an opponent. So it's a fascinating story, and I really loved it, and I hope my listeners enjoyed it too. Love to each and every one of you, wherever you are in the world. Until next time, goodbye and good night.